Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Rare Flavours, issue number 3, from Boom Studios. Now, this is written by Robbie with artwork by Felipe Andrade, and they worked on one of my favorite books of the last few years, The Many Deaths of Layla Starrs. And this is kind of like a spiritual successor to The Many Deaths of Layla Starr in that it deals with Hindu and Indian mythology, that it deals with culture, that it deals with the human experience of life and grief and death and all that kind of stuff wrapped in together. But in particular, this is about culture, it's about cuisine, and it's about cannibalism, at least to a point. It's about this figure in Hindu mythology who likes to eat people, and he's living as a man, and after finding out about the passing of Anthony Bourdain, he's inspired to do his own Anthony Bourdain type show. So he gets a photographer, he's trying to season this photographer, get him to be better at his art, to experience life, to appreciate life, because that's going to ripen him to be the best flavor or something like that. There's other people after him. It's a really intriguing book with amazing artwork and amazing color work from Felipe Andrade, and every single issue has a recipe, right, that's focused on, that is tied thematically to the book. In this one, it's about the idea that seasoning takes time. Rough and tough meat takes a lot of time to prepare, to season, to marinate, to slowly cook until it's perfectly ready. And that's what the main character's pretty much doing to everybody in this book. It's exceptionally charming. It's got a quirky sense of fun about it, but it's also got a true resonating soul within it that I absolutely adore. 3 issues out this year, and it makes it one of the best books of the year. Rare Flavours. It just don't get much better than that. Then we got Animal Pound, issue number 1. Now, this is written by Tom King with artwork by Peter Gross and Tamara Bonvillain on the coloring. The artwork is absolutely astonishing. The story's just okay. It's basically Animal Farm, but in an animal pound. Cats and dogs and a little bit of rabbits thrown in there. The story wasn't super bad. It was decent, but the problem is it was way overly verbose at times, and it just kind of became a slog to get through for me. The words didn't necessarily really capture much energy or imagination out of me. It just didn't fully engage me. It wasn't completely bad, but it wasn't like super exceptionally good, because I did find it to be a little bit of an arduous experience to make it through this book, even though the artwork was absolutely magnificent. It just seems like there's too many words on the page. It's just slowing down the pace of the book, but I understand because they're trying to get through some of these ideas, and it's all right. I mean, if you like Animal Farm, read Animal Farm. There's also a book called Animal Castle that was done recently, but Animal Pound, if you're a Tom King fan, you might want to check that one out. Then we got Lotus Land, issue number 2. This is from Darcy Van Polgeest. Now, I remember the first issue, but remember being a little bit confused about what is actually going on in this story. That confusion was still here just slightly, though, because what I really was enamored with in this issue was its definite structure of like a detective noirish type story. It's got some tropey elements to it, but the way it's playing with them and then the use of language around that absolutely works. It's that typical story of a former cop being brought back onto the job because there's something going on, there's mysteries, there's conspiracies, he's slowly uncovering it. The world in which this is set, though, I'm a little unclear on how it's all plugged in together, but I did enjoy this. It had a nice flow to it. The artwork was pretty decent as well, and I'm excited to actually, maybe, I got Lotus Land number 1 sitting in the room over there, so maybe I'll just sit down and reread number 1 and reread number 2, see if I can kind of iron out some of those details. Over at DC, we got Titans Beast World Tour Central City. So Titans Beast World, the latest event from DC, the tie-ins are these little one-shots. There was the World Tour one-shots, right? So we had the Metropolis one that was about the Super Family. We had the Gotham one that was about the Bat Family, how they're dealing with this outbreak of animal people in the DC universe. And just like you would be not too difficult in understanding that this is based around the Flash. But it actually, unlike the Gotham and unlike the Metropolis one, it has a really nice kind of framing bit that ties all the stories together and makes it feel more like a cohesive whole and less like it's just a bunch of short stories, which it is, but it's got a really solid story by Alex Packnadell. That framing sequence is done by Cy Spurrier. Some of the other stories are all right as well. So as far as the Beast World tie-ins go, this has been my favorite, but in no way are any of them essential to your understanding of Beast World proper. Then we got Wonder Woman issue number 4, Tom King, Daniel Samperi. This is my favorite issue of Tom King's Wonder Woman so far. I do still think it's a little bit overly verbose. It kind of, just like with Animal Pound, it kind of slogs down the reading experience, makes it just a little bit more of an arduous chore. But however, I did like the story elements that are going on in the pages of Wonder Woman number 4. Wonder Woman's basically been declared an outlaw from the United States and most of the other North American countries. It's like this concerted effort to block her and the Amazons out of America and start this war with them. There's a villainous presence that's like tied into the presidency of the United States of America. I like those ideas. I like the main story in here about Wonder Woman visiting a sick kid, for instance. I like the dichotomy of those two things going on, and unlike some other of the previous issues of Wonder Woman, Tom King, even in the verbosity of it, he's not just telling us what we can clearly see. He's actually doing an interesting thing where he's showing one scene and then the dialogue or the captions are talking about another scene, and so it causes it to be a little bit more engaging, a little bit more compelling. So Wonder Woman number 4 I thought was a little bit of a step up for Tom King's Wonder Woman. Then we got Batman Off-World issue number 2. Jason Aaron, Doug Mahnke, I'm loving this book. I love this book. Like, the first issue was super fun, but I was a little bit concerned about issue number 2. Will Jason Aaron be able to get out of a sophomore slump with the second issue? And I am proud to say yes, absolutely. This book was so much fun. So early in Batman's career, he figures out there are aliens. So Batman surmises the plan where he winds up on an alien ship to learn how to take down aliens, and it doesn't quite go how he thinks it's going to go, and he winds up, you know, basically getting put into a prison, a space prison in the first issue, and this is him trying to meet people, help people, and break out of that prison. But it's got amazing artwork, really pop in color, and just a really cool approach to a Batman story that's familiar, but at the same time rather unique. So Batman Off-World is absolutely astonishing. I had so much fun with that. Batman Santa Claus Silent Night issue number 3, written by Jeff Parker with artwork from Bandini. What is that first name? It's Michelle Bandini and Trevor Hairzine. I'm liking this book. I'm liking this book a lot. It's way better than it has any right to be. It's a weekly miniseries, Batman teaming up with Santa Claus, but it's also very much a Justice League type book. But Batman's the one who has previous experience with Santa Claus, and one of my favorite bits in this issue is Superman being like enamored, just completely like awestruck by the fact that Santa is real. But it actually has got some nice stakes, it's got some nice villains. The Krampus is the main villain. Santa Claus is not just... Santa Claus is more like the Klaus from the Grant Morrison and Dan Mora comic book series, and it even helps it, actually, with the Dan Mora cover. So I'm having a lot of fun with this, and this is going to be a nice perennial almost type thing, evergreen in a way, Christmas read from DC for years to come. Then we got Nightwing here with issue number 109. This is wrapping up this current arc where he's kind of been helping a former love of his from the Rick Grayson days. And I do love that Tom Taylor can play around with those Rick Grayson days, which is some of the most what the F moments of Dick Grayson's history, and actually bring out a very compelling and really interesting story that has a lot of heart and charm to it as well. I really have been enjoying the book Nightwing. I do feel like at times it kind of feels like it gets away from the point of the book, but then it always veers right back into it. So this was a satisfying conclusion to this story arc, but it also sets up a lot about what's to come that's part of the overall narrative, and I'm going to go ahead and give this the cover of the week just because it's Nightwing, he's swimming, he's making his sigil right there, and I just think it's super cool, so I'm going to give that the cover of the week. All right, then we got Batman Superman issue number 22, World's Finest is here. Dan Mora, Mark Waid, Tamara Hammer Bond villain. They've been killing it on this book, classic type superhero storytelling, but with a little bit of a modern approach and a flair to it that is incredibly energetic and dynamic as hell. I have so much fun with this book. It's kind of setting up to be like a prequel to Kingdom Come. The boy Thunder, who is now actually Thunder Man, is somehow connected to the Gog and the Magog of the Kingdom Come world. We figure out how and why in the pages here. So if you're a Kingdom Come fan, you're definitely going to check it out. You're definitely going to like it. However, if you're just a DC superhero comics fan, this is one of the best books on the shelves, and if you're not reading it, why? Why aren't you? Then we got Superman here with issue number 9. I love what Josh Williamson's been doing in the pages of Superman, actually allowing this book to have some stakes, have a sense of scale and scope, but at the same time have a very bombastic approach to the storytelling, right? Lots of interesting characters and a lot of tie-ins to the past, right? Especially that Jeff Loeb, Joe Kelly era of Superman. Lex's daughter is back. His mother is back. He's trying to help Superman be a better Superman. There's all these different things going on, and it's rather charming, but it also has a nice touch of human tragedy in this issue when Superman's been kryptonite poisoned and all this kind of stuff, and Lois is at his bedside, and the way that that's handled structurally and thematically absolutely works for me. I like the art here by Bruno Redondo. I would like to see a little bit more flair from that artwork, though, on Superman, a little bit larger in life as far as the perspectives go, but this was another solid issue of Superman that really is setting up a cool run for this character. Then we got Green Lantern War Journal, issue number 4. Philip Kennedy Johnson's been killing it on Green Lantern War Journal. This is a John Stewart-centric book. John Stewart's like developing these new abilities, these new powers. There's this new villainous force out there called the Radiant Dead. It's kind of like Blackest Night, but a little bit different. I like those ideas. I think they're incredibly interesting. I have fun with this book. It's got a lot of heart to it, and it also has a nice grounded sense of the character and the approach to the storytelling. So Green Lantern War Journal, number 4, I'm liking it. Jay Garrick, The Flash, issue number 3. Jeremy Adams already had a very successful run on the Wally West Flash book that was so consistent and awesome and put his name and his talents on my radar. And now Jay Garrick, The Flash, where we're kind of taking that new Golden Age stuff set up by Jeff Johns and filling in some of these holes, getting to revisit the Jay Garrick origin, reintroduce or introduce really for the first time his daughter, Boom. It's really cool and interesting. The art could be a little bit better. It does come across a bit clunky at times, but overall this is a fun, solid book that's helping reimagine DC's Golden Age for today. Then we got Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, issue number 3. I loved this issue. Issue number 1 and 2, I'm telling you, like, you're gonna get what your build here. You're getting the Justice League versus Superman, the Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. But what really impresses me with issue number 3, and I do think this is the best issue of it yet, is it actually raises what appeared to be stakes. So this is just a throwaway book. It's not tied into continuity. It's not going to change comics or anything like that. But as you're reading this book, the weight of the events feel very real, and it feels more than just a simple cash grab, throwing Godzilla and Kong in there, and I really appreciate the storytelling for that. Then we got to show off that Batman 406 is out with a facsimile version. This is Batman Year 1 Part 3. They've been doing this weekly on glorious newsprint with the original coloring, and I'll tell you what, it gets the smell of the week, so don't forget that that's there. Let's jump over to Marvel. And from Marvel, we have the original X-Men issue number 1. This is actually a one-shot comic that's setting up a new series that debuts early next year. It's like Weapon X, but it's the Weapon X from Age of Apocalypse, but it's kind of like the Exiles or something. It just got announced. This is a book that leads into it. And this is those original 5 X-Men. You remember the ones that came back in all new, all different X-Men or whatever? Bendis brought them in from the past. They lived in the present day, then went back to the past, but had their minds erased. Well, in this one, they get visited by the Phoenix, and the Phoenix removes those memory blocks, and then they wind up in this adventure, and it's just kind of okay. The worst part of it, honestly, is Greg Land just redoing the same art over and over and over again. Look at that. Is that not a familiar image of the Phoenix that Greg Land has already done multiple times? Is that right here not a memorable image of the Phoenix? Like, Greg Land just recycling stuff, and it's so obnoxious and annoying, and I just couldn't get into this book. It didn't do much for me. I don't know if it's going to do much for you, but it is interesting what it sets up for that new series. Then we got Spider-Boy here with issue number 2, and just as surprised as I was with issue number 1, I liked this book. It had a nice sense of fun, a buoyancy about it that didn't take itself too seriously, but at the same time, wasn't just dumb, wasn't just silly, but a nice balance of everything. And it's kind of like what a Spider-Man book should be. I don't really care much about this Spider-Boy character, but they're actually turning me into a fan here. Dan Slott's got a great job, doing a great job with the dialogue, scripting it through. The art's pretty solid. You got art by Paco Medina and Ty Templeton. The backup story is just okay, and they're just kind of throwaway stories, but they feel very classic. They feel very fun. This is Spider-Boy teaming up with Captain America versus Taskmaster. And I'm telling you what, I really liked it. I thought it was good. Then we got Superior Spider-Man issue number 2, and this one's just kind of all right. It's not really the full promised return of the Superior Spider-Man that we thought, but it's more like a team-up between Peter Parker's Spider-Man and Dr. Octavius, because they have a common enemy that is from the retconned pages of Superior Spider-Man, if that makes sense. So it's okay. It's decent. Mark Bagley's artwork is all right, but it does feel a little bit rushed. So it's just kind of okay. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man here with issue number 40. And it's just kind of okay. It's part of the gang war story. There's some interesting elements that are being brought together here, but overall, gang war doesn't seem to have the oomph that it was promised to have. It has dealt with some interesting changes of power, some different dynamics, like moving back and forth, but for the most part, I think after Gang War, if I make it through it, I might just be done with this run of Spider-Man, because it's just not doing much for me, and I don't know, it's just kind of alright. Then we got The Incredible Hulk here with issue number 7, and I loved this issue of The Incredible Hulk. I do believe that this book has been a little bit inconsistent. Most of that is because of the art. Nick Klein is back on the art here for the full issue, and it absolutely soars when Nick Klein is on the artwork. And I love people like Travel Foreman, for instance, but it's such a different style that when you're reading this book, it just kind of shifts that artistic tone, even though the tone of the story, which is very supernatural, horror, and monster influenced and based, it just doesn't really always work when the art keeps changing so often. But Nick Klein soars on this book, and this was a really solid issue of The Incredible Hulk that's tied into what is going on in the ongoing story, but still set up in its own little world. Not necessarily self-contained, but self-contained for this arc, if that makes sense. Doctor Strange is here with issue number 10. Man, I've been loving what Jed MacKay's been doing in the pages of Doctor Strange. Pasquale Ferry on the artwork, too. The artwork is tremendous in this book. A brilliant composition, great panel designs and layouts, excellent use of color, psychedelic, real, filled with stuff. I'm liking this Doctor Strange run. Now, this brings an end to the big first story that Jed MacKay's doing about this older version of Doctor Strange who's fought in this war for thousands of years and is just a complete hard-ass now and will kill or be killed, you know what I'm saying? And it brings a conclusion to that, which is rather satisfying. Even though it does feel rather abrupt in this issue, I was just wowed by that artwork. So Doctor Strange, 10 issues in, I think that's one of Marvel's best titles right now. Spine-tingling Spider-Man is here with issue number 3. Saladin Ahmed doing a great deal with the story, and in this issue, kind of taking this horror story centered around Spider-Man and plugging it more into what we would typically expect from a Spider-Man story. They start explaining some stuff. It has to do with one of his old villains, but there's a twist to it. But the big star of this book is Juan Ferreira's artwork. I frickin' love his artwork so much. Shouldn't show you that page. That would be a huge spoiler. So let's just show you that page right there. Love the art, love the colors, love the composition. Truly terrifying visually at times. I think it's absolutely astounding for that. Spine-tingling Spider-Man. Now that's a Spider-Man book I can get behind. That and Spider-Boy. Then we got Gods here with issue number 3. Jonathan Hickman doing a new book at Marvel. I feel like I should be more excited. The book's not bad, it's alright, and it's setting up this idea. It's almost like Hickman is slowly building a new cosmology for Marvel and a new pantheon of gods, and he's doing some interesting things there, some interesting ideas, but when you read the book, you just kind of feel, I don't know, I feel a little bit disconnected from it. Doesn't feel like it's delivering the excitement that Marvel wants it to, or even that maybe Hickman expects it to. It's interesting, it's cool, it's got some great ideas, but there's a piece of me that's not quite clicking with it, and we'll see what happens, because when it comes to Hickman, I do trust him, so I'm going to stick this one through, and I think this is being billed as an ongoing now. I don't know. We have to see about that. From Image Comics, we have The Deviant, issue number 2. This almost made the pick of the week. What a fantastic follow-up to the first issue. So The Deviant is written by James Tynion IV with artwork by, is it Joshua Hickson? Yeah, Joshua Hickson, Hassan Otsman, Al Hal on the lettering. Lettering's top-notch. The art is moody and atmospheric, exactly what it needs to be. But the story, even though it feels very personal, it actually resonates very well with me. I think this is a great book. It's about this dude who's a comic book writer trying to research this serial killing Santa Claus from back in the 70s, right? And this Santa Claus was a gay man, and so he kind of gets like labeled as this deviant and locked away, but he keeps protesting and professing his innocence for years. So this dude's kind of interviewing him because he wants to do a story about this, because hearing that story kind of struck a chord with him and made him realize his own sexuality and his questioning of his sexuality. So there's some interesting dynamics going on there, some really nice introspection, really cool thematic material, and on the top of all of it, just a really cool serial killer, psychological thriller, horror type thing set around Christmas, which, if you've seen our recent reviews of movies like Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Christmas Evil, you know that that's right up my alley. So I really like The Deviant, issue number 2. Then we got Geiger Ground Zero, issue number 2, the second part and conclusion of this 2-part miniseries. It's a little bit of an origin tale for Geiger. Now, we knew how Geiger got his powers, kind of. We knew all this, but we didn't know how he got his get-up, how he got his costume, how he learned about the rods that he needs to put in his back to, like, maintain his level of radioactivity and stuff like that. You learn all of that in these pages. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't feel like we're being given something that's 100% necessary, that we needed, that we didn't get from the previous issue, but it's nice to fill in some of those cracks, and it's nice to get back into this world, because this whole Ghost Machine thing that Jeff Johns and Gary Frank and others are spearheading is really exciting, and I'm loving these books. Geiger was awesome, Junkyard Joe was amazing, and Geiger Ground Zero, really, really solid stuff. Then we got Spawn here with issue number 348. We are nearing 350. Surely that's got to be some kind of big climactic conclusion to this whole war for the throne of hell thing that's been going on for so long. And because it's going across basically 3 out of the 4 books, like The Scorched and King Spawn and Spawn itself, and they come out in weird orders that sometimes it's hard to keep track of where we are in the story because it feels very disjointed. So this was an issue of Spawn that didn't completely hit me, but at the same time, even an okay issue of Spawn's better than some other comics because it's cardstock cover $2.99. And it's been going for 348 issues. From Vault Comics, we have Beyond Real, issue number 1. This might be your sleeper hit of the week. This is written by Zach Kaplan with artwork by Fabiana Mascolo and Tony Fazzula, with coloring by Tony Fazzula and Jordi Belair. I really liked this book. It's about this woman, her and her boyfriend slash lover, whoever he is. I don't know if they're boyfriend or if it's her husband, or anyway, her partner, right? They wind up in a car accident. He's in a coma, and something in the accident disjoints her from reality, and she can now see that our reality is a simulation. So she starts trying to learn to manipulate those abilities. The art was fantastic. The way they tell the story is fantastic. The dialogue by Zach Kaplan is fantastic. The layouts, lots of double-page spreads, helps that dialogue flow right through. Had a nice sense of pace about it and some really cool concepts and ideas. And the artwork, like I said, just top-notch. So Beyond Real, issue number 1. If you liked Mindset, which is the same writer, you might want to check this one out, because Beyond Real, some really cool, interesting science fiction out there. Godzilla, War for Humanity, issue number 3. Too far between issues for this one for me, but I'm loving this book. The story's simple enough. There's this scientist. She has this idea that she proposes that Godzilla is actually good for as a protector for humanity. But then just when they need Godzilla the most, Godzilla's busy being a parent or something like that. And there's this giant monster attack. So they have to figure out a way to goad Godzilla back to the city to help them fight the monsters. And the big star of this is Jake Smith's artwork. Jake Smith's artwork is so amazing in this book. It's brilliantly colorful. It is incredibly cartoony and cartoonish and caricature-ish at times, but it's also just gnarly. Those colors, those layouts, those monsters, those double-page spreads, absolutely fantastic stuff. Then we got Red Light, issue number 2 from AWA. This is written by, is it Sarah Cho? I want to say Sarah Cho. Yeah, Sarah H. Cho, Priscilla Petrates on the artwork. This is about a sex-working android in the not-so-distant future. It's got a lot of vibes from Ex Machina, but she is working in a brothel. She wants to escape the brothel, and in issue number 2, it's mostly about how she is coming up with this plan to get out of this brothel and then have that plan come to fruition. I'm liking this book. It's a little sexy, it's a little steamy, but for the most part, it is about liberation, it's about freedom, it's about the positive expression of oneself. So Red Light, I'm digging it. Issue number 2. Rumpus Room is here with issue number 4, the penultimate issue of this billionaire who has a rumpus room. Basically, if somebody gets on his nerves, somebody pisses him off, he throws them in his rumpus room. He just keeps all these people down there. Every so often, they vote on one of them to basically get killed and turned into skin cream. So it's Mark Russell doing what Mark Russell does fairly often, but fairly well, which is poke fun at billionaires and the class system and do a satirical work that is actually filled with humor and excitement and cleverness, and at the same time, a scathing criticism of billionaires, which he's done before, and he does it well. So, Rumpus Room, issue number 4, I was really digging that one. Canary, issue number 2, was a little bit of a step down from the first issue for me. I do still like Dan Panosian's artwork, but it does feel like it's a little bit more rushed. The coloring is really exceptional in the first issue, and here, it's exceptionally okay. It's okay, it's good, but it doesn't seem to quite have the power. Now, maybe the reason for that is that the story kind of clunks down a little bit. Now, by the end of it, it ramps back up, but for the middle chapter of this story, it just kind of feels like it slows up a little too much, gets a little too talky, and it's one of the things that I can criticize Scott Snyder's books for sometimes. And the art's okay. I mean, I'm not saying the art's bad. I mean, I really like Dan Panosian's artwork, but there's just not a lot of excitement for him to draw in this book like there was for the first one. So it was just kind of okay for me. Then we've got Borealis, issue number 1 from Dark Horse Comics. I can make heads or tails out of this. I don't know. It's about some kind of entities in the Aurora Borealis. Possess this one woman or something? I have no idea. I tried really hard to make it through this book. I made it through the book. No clue really what was going on, never connected to any of the characters or to the situation, so this one just did not work for me. But then we got The Plot Holes, issue number 5, the final issue of The Plot Holes, a very satisfying conclusion of the Sean Gordon Murphy penned and illustrated book. Really fantastic ideas about the power of fiction and fictional characters and how important fiction is to our lives. Not just us, but those characters within fiction. So it gets a little meta, but I kind of like that. So I thought it was a very satisfying conclusion. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. Let's recap. Plot Holes, number 5, a very satisfying conclusion. Borealis, a very confusing opening to that book, and no idea. Canary, a little bit of a step down from issue 1. Rumpus Room continues to be rambunctiously awesome. Red Light, a little saucy, but a lot of flavor, if you know what I'm saying. Godzilla War for Humanity, the art is the big star there, but I love it. Beyond Real might be your sleeper hit of the week. High concept sci-fi type stuff, questioning reality with really neat artwork. Spawn kind of gets muddled and muddy a little bit here and there, and that's one of those issues. Geiger Ground Zero, an excellent conclusion to an origin that we didn't necessarily need, but definitely glad that we got it. The Deviant really continues that momentum established in issue number 1. Christmas psychological horror from James Tynion. Gods, number 3, I'm feeling a little bit disconnected. Doesn't feel like the excitement level is there for some of these big ideas. Spine-tingling Spider-Man, loving this. A nice shift in the story to make it feel a little bit more probably palpable to more typical modern Marvel fans. Doctor Strange, number 10. McKay and Ferry have been killing it on that book. The Incredible Hulk, a really solid issue of The Incredible Hulk. I wish it could be more consistent. Amazing Spider-Man is quickly losing me. Superior Spider-Man is just kind of okay. Spider-Boy is surprisingly fun. Like, really, I'm loving it. The original X-Men did not do much for me, but it does set up that new Weapon X book. Batman Year 1 Facsimile, Smell of the Week. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong adds a little bit of weight and gravity to the story, and I really like that. Jay Garrick, The Flash, reimagining this character in the new Golden Age. Green Lantern War Journal, lots of character work, and lots of cool concepts being played around with. Superman, Josh Williamson's been killing it. Bruno Redondo joins the team. Batman Superman World's Finest, Kingdom Come prequel, some of the best superhero action out there on the shelves. Nightwing gets the cover of the week and a satisfying conclusion to that arc and setting up what's to come. Batman Santa Claus Silent Night, issue number 3, is better than it has any right to be. Batman Offworld number 2 continues the awesomeness that was established in issue number 1. Jason Aaron might have a career superhero revitalization over at DC this year. Then we got Wonder Woman number 4. I'm liking this one better than the previous 3 issues, but it does still feel a little clunky with some of its dialogue. Titans Beast World Tour Central City, my favorite of these tie-ins, but in no way essential. Lotus Land, I'm a little bit lost on the world-building aspects and what's going around, but a really great use of the film noir type structure and excellent use of language. Animal Pound has some cool ideas, a cool approach to it, great artwork, but it was just so overly verbose, it kind of hindered the engagement of the book for me. But Rare Flavors is Ron V, it's Felipe Andrade. It's them doing their own thing, doing something clever, tying in the idea of cuisine with culture, with cannibalism and eating people and demons and all this kind of stuff. But it's nuanced and it's nice and it's cool and I like it. So Rare Flavors is your pick of the week. So there you go. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support this channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading, y'all. Station. Merry Christmas. Pop, pop. Boom.